Get it online on your mobile. This is IPOB Community Radio, Radio Biafra, the first and the last.
Do you now understand what we are fighting? We must make it very, very clear that we are in a struggle for liberation. There is no democracy in a revolution.
So my biggie go to me, put on me a lot of me. So me all out me, or the magic go to me. So me all out me, Mama. Alada memo, Rigo memo. Alada memo, Rigo memo. Alada memo, Why you do me so? Boss, can you tell me? Do me so? Boss, can you tell me? Why you do me so? Boss, can you tell me? Why you do me so? Waiting for the master. What can you tell me? Waiting for the master. What can you tell me? What can you tell me? Why you do me so? What can you tell me? Why you do me so? Adule, Pashamaka, Oyama, Odega Powder. Ego Pashamoko, Oyama, Odega Bono. Ego Pashamishi, Oyama, Odega Pilo. No. I don't know, baby, back out. You anyway. Rosa, Rosanna, on the garden man. Adure,
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, great Biafrans and lovers of freedom. This is Radio Biafra HAUSA service coming to you via the auspices of Radio Biafra London. My name remains Mazi Chika Edoziem from Alo province of Biafra land. Today is the 24th day of the 9th month, being September, in the year of our Lord 2021. I want to also inform you today that our radio in Iguacha has been restored. Please hurry and tune in on 102.1 in Iguacha. Is booming there. Without wasting time, we are going to go direct to the head of the directorate, Mazi Chika Edoziem. Please welcome to the program. Go on, the platform is yours.
Thank you so much, Mazi Jonathan. Can you hear me, please?
The whole world is hearing and listening to you. Please, go on.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, and good night, great Biafrans all over the world, wherever you may be at this very moment, depending on your time zone. My name is Mazi Chika Edoziem. I come from Ihe Oma. Ihe Oma is in all the province of Biafra land. And by the grace of Elohim, I serve the indigenous people of Biafra in the Directorate of State as the head of directorate. Great Biafrans, before I move ahead this evening or night or morning, I wish once again to bring to you greetings from the indomitable supreme leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, who has all of us in his thoughts and prayers. Notwithstanding the physical and mental torture that he is being put into or put through, he always asks about the family that is waiting and expecting his rejoining us soonest. In one or two of my last broadcasts, well, not last in terms of the past two broadcasts, but in one of two broadcasts that I made. In one of the first one, I spoke about faithfulness as it concerns this very struggle. Faithfulness to the objective, faithfulness to the principles, fundamental principles guiding this very moment, this very movement. Faithfulness to the ideology which our leader Mazi Chika has put in place for our movement and for the restoration of the sovereign nation of Biafra. And of course, faithfulness to that ideology that will emancipate us from the servitude that we have found ourselves in the zoo at the moment. And then following up, I talked about loyalty. I spoke about loyalty, those who belong to this family. And I said that we must search our hearts and minds, and we must inquire within us if our loyalty to the leader of this movement is unquestionable. And in talking about loyalty, I also talked about discipline. And great Biafrans, we have seen that there are many of us. What we went through at the time when our leader was just 1 year away without any communication. Many fell by the wayside because they were not faithful. Many fell by the wayside because they were not loyal. And many more fell by the wayside because they were not disciplined. And we fast forward to this very moment, 2021. I wanted to remind Biafrans of importance of adhering faithfully to these fundamental principles, these guiding objectives, these ideologies upon which the foundation of this movement and upon our struggle is built upon. I wanted to remind Biafrans, especially family members of the indigenous people of Biafra, that these are key for us to continue to maintain and to continue to have the fire burning. Today, we have seen that those who are not faithful, those who are not loyal, those who are not disciplined are once again revealing themselves and their hands. Now, what we must not fail to do is that those who are called, those of us and those of you who believe that you are a hardcore IPOB family member, you have demonstrated your faithfulness by remaining faithful to the core principles of this movement. You have demonstrated your hardcoreness by remaining loyal and disciplined to the leader of this very movement, because there is no two leaders in this movement. We do not have two captains. It is only one and one person alone. And the structure that he put in place is the structure upon which we are marching relentlessly towards our goal, which is a sovereign, independent Biafran nation. I want to ask you today, are you consistent? Are you consistent in carrying out your duties? Are you consistent in your faithfulness and loyalty? Because if you're not consistent, you may become a victim like those who fell by the wayside. Therefore, absolute commitment is required of all of us. Absolute commitment to the principles of this movement. Absolute commitment to our responsibilities as principal officers and our responsibilities as IPOB family members. Because without commitment, we also might not be able to move ahead and continue on the path that is clearly and visibly laid for us by Onyendu, the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra. If you are a principal servant, if you are an IPOB family member, these four words must be constantly before you. You must remain faithful. You must remain loyal. You must remain committed to this struggle. And you must be consistent in all that we do. And of course, above all, discipline is a key factor for us to carry out our functions and for us to obey and carry out instructions duly passed down to us by our superiors, and at this hour by the Directorate of State of the Indigenous People of Biafra. This institution, which people who came before have tried all they could, all that is in their power to destroy. This institution, the DOS, has remained faithful. We have remained loyal. We have remained committed, and we are consistent in carrying out those functions, those duties and responsibilities that are inherent in that institution, and of course, that are made for us to continue to hold this family together and move it ahead and move it forward, not allowing anything to distract our objectives, which, as I always say, our objectives are very, very simple, and they are not too many. They are just one. The immediate objective we have, and of course the long-term objective that we also have. The leader of this movement must be released. It does not matter the shenanigans, it does not matter the delay. The leader of this great movement, Onyenumazi Nnamdi Kanu, must be released by the Zoological Republic of Nigeria. They must release him. And they must release him very, very quickly. They must release him unconditionally, because the son of Elohim has committed no crime. The son of Chukwukabiyama is only asking for what belongs to us. Self-determination is not a crime, neither is it a call for war. Self-determination is a right enshrined in the charters of both the United Nations and the African Union. And not only that, they are enshrined in these documents. The zoo itself, the zoo, Zoological Republic of Nigeria, in 1983 to be precise, they domesticated these international bodies, charters on the right of indigenous people of Biafra for self-determination. Therefore, I will call upon all those who have remained faithful and loyal that you must add consistency to that, and you must continue to be committed to your duties. We know that the zoo have one objective. They have one agenda. And I said it on one or two occasions, that they are focused on believing that they can disrupt or destroy the basis or the foundation of this movement. They believe that they can manipulate in any way that they thought possible the leadership of this great movement. But I want to tell them, and I want to assure them, that they failed in 2015. They failed in 2017, 2018, and they will fail as well, hopelessly, in this 2021, because the leadership that Onyendu has put in place, the Directorate of State, will be unwavering in our pursuit of our freedom. We will be unwavering in implementing the already drawn out plan by our leader, which plan draws us closer and nearer to our freedom. We know that there are issues emanating from IPOB family in the United States of America. I want to say very quickly to the IPOB woman leader, and I want to make it very open here so that everybody will hear me, that IPOB, if you say that you are a member, a family member, better say, if you see yourself as a family member of the indigenous people of Biafra led by Onyenumazi Nnamdi Kanu, and you do not adhere to the principles of this movement, then I want to tell you that you are in a wrong place. You are in a wrong place because anybody who thinks that they can come in whatever nomenclature to try and hijack this movement, that person has never been born. And like our leader said, it will take you decades to even, get to the to the structure of this movement and take you double, much more, a century, more than a century, to think you can shake the foundation of this movement. Therefore, Mrs. Bridget Okafor, who is the IPOB woman leader, you must pay attention. You are the IPOB woman leader USA. And if you do not take charge of IPOB Women USA, then that means you do not desire, or sorry, you do not, you're not qualified to be in that position. If you allow people to use that umbrella, IPOB women, to try to disorganize or infiltrate this movement, I am saying it this very day, the 24th of September 2021, you must put your act together and show leadership. Because if you are in this movement as an IPOB family member, then you must follow the structure that is laid down. You must follow the directive that is passed on to you. You cannot be an island on your own. You cannot be, it cannot happen in IPOB. It cannot happen in IPOB. If after tonight's broadcast and the IPOB woman leader does not take charge of IPOB women group in USA and make sure that they are in tune with our objectives, that they are following the principles that guide this movement, that they are committed and loyal to the leader of this movement and to the structures he put in place, I will tell you now that I, Mazi Edoziem, will disband IPOB Women USA. Let that sink in now. Nobody can come here under IPOB women and tell us that they are Biafra women all over the world. That cannot happen. If you want to be Biafra women, you can be Biafra women to fight for Biafra. We have no problem with that. We can encourage you. But as long as you have brought yourself into this family under the leadership of Onyendu, and Onyendu who made IPOB women, because we know, going back in history, we know what happened to those who gathered themselves also as IPOB women, and they left their objective and started to pursue something different. And we also know what happened to them. Now I'm telling you now tonight that if you, Mrs. Bridget, do not take charge and control of IPOB USA and ensure that they are in tune with what we are doing, if you allow that people will come from outside and come into IPOB women to begin to dictate to you what will happen or what will not happen. If you allow yourself to listen to the fact that now Umuada has written up, Biafra Umuada has written up, and all that goes with that. Here is not Umuada meeting, and here is not Umuna meeting. This is a freedom fighting outfit. This IPOB is a freedom fighting outfit. It is a movement that is fighting for the restoration and emancipation of our dignity and, of course, of our heritage. I will not belabor this matter, but I believe and I hope that the message is very clear. The message is very, very clear. Once again, we must not underrate our enemy, because the zoo, as Onyendu said, and as we are all aware, they are awash. They are awash with funds and funds that are generated from resources in our own land. They are awash with funds which they can afford to distribute to those who are willing and ready to be tools in their own evil plan. And we have been hearing and seeing people going about making false videos and false allegations. I wish to state clearly and unequivocally that the Eastern Security Network do not operate accounts either in Biafra land or in the Zoological Republic of Nigeria. We cannot be that stupid. We cannot operate an account in the zoo where we know that the enemies, their eyes is everywhere, or their eyes are everywhere. We cannot operate an account for our security outfit in the territory of our enemy, either be it in the zoo or even in our own land, Biafra land, because we know that they have those who collaborate with them. ESN operates its account only in the diaspora. And those who are going about making false, peddling falsehood, this must be disregarded because they know what they are doing. They know what they are doing because people are saying that their objective is to do what? Their objective is to starve IPOB of funds. Their objective is to discredit the leadership. Their objective is to create chaos. But what is coming for them, they will not be able to understand it by the time it hits them. Therefore, you are a principal officer. You are a principal officer and you allow yourself to be deceived. You, of course, will be held accountable for allowing yourself to be in any manner deceived by anybody. I wish to state that those who are in the United States of America, especially the principal officers, who have shown their hand, who have come out openly by action and by words to say that they do not recognize the structure that Oyendu put in place, I want to tell you that we are not here in a moonlight game or moonlight play. You do not have a place here. You do not have a place in IPOB. And having said that, we are going to make some announcement as it concerns the changes that we have in the United States of America. Very, very important change that we are making in USA and of course in Canada. IPOB is divided into 4 region time zones in USA. And the regional coordinator for IPOB USA Central Region, Mazi Edoziem, has in words and action shown that he does not belong with us. He does not owe his loyalty to Onyendu. He is not faithful, he is not consistent, and he is not committed. Therefore, Mazi Edoziem, beginning immediately from tonight, ceases to be IPOB USA Central Regional Rep. In his place, we have a new USA Central Regional Representative, and his name is Mazi Samson Enyinaya Eme Mando. Mazi Samson Enyinaya Eme Mando. Eme Mando. I beg your pardon, I hope I get it correctly. Eme Mando is our new IPOB USA Central Regional Rep, and with immediate effect. In Canada, also we have regions in Canada, and the Canada-Ontario rep Mazi Chika has equally shown that he is not faithful, he is not loyal, he is not disciplined. He cannot continue to be called a principal servant of this great movement. Therefore, Mazi Chika, formerly of IPOB Ontario Regional Rep, is no longer our regional rep in Ontario. And a new rep will be announced in a memo that I will bring out tomorrow. A new rep will be announced in a memo that I will bring out tomorrow. Also, in the United States of America, we have a media and publicity secretary for IPOB USA. A media and publicity secretary for IPOB USA. And he goes by the name Chibike Omunna. Chibike Omunna will take up the task of properly informing the public, not only IPOB family members, not only Biafran, but the generality of the people in USA, informing them about issues concerning this very great movement and informing them about our march to freedom. Of course, we know that we have a very, very important alliance with the Ambazonian people. Biafrans must pay attention. Very, very important. We have a very important alliance with the Ambazonian people who are also suffering under the oppression of the Cameroonian government, as we are suffering under the oppression of the Zoological Republic of Nigerian government. But fortunately for the Ambazonians, they will be celebrating their Independence Day on February. The Ambazonian people will be celebrating their Independence Day on 1st of October. And I want to inform Biafrans worldwide, especially in the diaspora especially, that if our brothers, the Ambazonian people, extend the invitation to them for their event, they should please honor that event in ensuring that our relationship is deepened and that our alliance remains unshakable. And in Biafra land, the zoo themselves said that they will be celebrating their 1st of October, their independence on 1st of October. But I want to say this very evening that on that very day, 1st of October, there shall be no movement in Biafra land. We will show the zoo that we have repudiated them. On the 1st of October, this very year, 2021, we must show the zoo that we have rejected every vestiges of the authority over us. And not only that, we are going to have a sit at home, a complete lockdown of the whole of Biafra land. We must begin from this very night to remove every flag of the zoo that is found anywhere in Biafra land must be brought down. Every flag that symbolizes the servitude, the slavery that we are that we have been put into. Every flag of the zoo which symbolizes the oppression and the presence of the enemy in our land must be brought down from this night going forward. It does not matter where it is, with exception, one exception, my dear people. One exception, because we know the enemy and we know what they do, we know how they think. We think ahead of them. One exception, and that exception is that in bringing down the zoo flags, nobody, and I repeat, nobody must interfere or go to any bank to bring the zoo flag down. That must not be done, because what the enemy will do is that they will go and rob a bank and they say, yes, these are IPOB people because they gave them the instruction to go and bring flags down, and then they will rob a bank. I want to repeat that every place, whether it is government office, government quarters, or governor's office, whatever it may be, secretariats, any institution, any organization, any company that mounted the zoo flag, which symbolizes only one thing, oppression of the enemy in our midst, that company, that institution, that organization must bring it down, or else we shall bring it down ourselves. And with the exception, I want you to repeat, with the exception of banks, do not go to any bank to remove the flags. We will communicate with the banks ourselves and tell them of the importance of their removing and bringing down any zoo flag in their premises. We will communicate with them. Therefore, this instruction and this directive exempts the bank for now. We know that the plan of the zoo and their co-travelers and workers of iniquity, the intelligence report that we have received, is that they are planning, they are considering, they are contemplating whether or not to bring Onyendu to court on the 21st of October. And I want to tell them that if they try for any reason, and on the 21st of October, our leader is not brought to court, because they said they have charges against him. Okay, we accept. You have charges against him, fine. You want to bring him to court, fine. And he is healthy, he is okay to come to court, therefore you must bring him to court on the 21st of October next month. Failing which, Ndiefulefu must listen now. The politicians, you must hear us, so that you will not say that you were not informed, you were not told. If our leader is not brought to court on the 21st of October, we will lock down Biafra land non-stop for 1 month and going forward. And if after that 1 month they still do not bring him for us to see that our leader is well and healthy, we shall declare an indefinite lockdown of the whole of Biafra land. And we want to tell the politicians to challenge us, and they will see that we are not here for any games, and we are not here for play. Biafrans all over the world, like Onyendu is always having us in his prayers, we must continue as well to have him in our prayers. We must continue to have Wachineke in our prayers. We must continue to seek the face of heaven. We must continue to call those of us who are religiously inclined, be it Christian or Judaism, the Judeo-Christian faith, which is well established in Biafra land. You must continue to put Onyendu Mazi in your prayers. And those who believe in Ordinana, those who follow the ways of our ancestors, you must pour libations to our ancestors to continue to put our leader in prayer, and for our ancestors to continue to guide him and preserve and protect him. And of course, to bring him out to us sooner than later. In doing this, therefore, our reading of the Psalms and our supplication to Elohim continues until we have reached the 150 Psalms that the Bible contains. Of course, Mazi Jonathan has already said here that our FM in Ibocha is back on air. Let me read it. That we are doing all that we can do to ensure that most of our FM stations that are down, that they will be up and running as soon as possible. Our FM in Ibocha is back on air 102.1. 102.1 is where those in Ibocha and its surroundings will get the Radio Biafra broadcasts. And let me say, finally, I want to commend the Biafran people from my heart. The bottom of my heart, I want to commend the Biafran people, especially Biafrans in the homeland. Biafrans in Biafra land, I want to commend you. And why do I want to commend you? I want to commend you because for you and for all of us, we have come to realize the importance of freedom. For we have come to realize the importance of liberation. We have come to realize the importance of we as a people being able to use the talents that Chukwokike has given to us and our children for the betterment of our people and for the betterment of humanity. And IPOB, the indigenous people of Biafra leadership, we initiated a weekly sit at home. We initiated it and the Biafran people responded enthusiastically. They responded with all their hearts, with all their energy, and with all their way. And even though that the leadership has again come to suspend that sit at home monthly and weekly sit at home, the Biafra people have continued to show what I was talking about when I said faithfulness and loyalty, consistency and commitment and discipline in this very struggle. Who cannot commend your efforts? Who cannot commend when you have now understood that what we are pursuing is not that we shall have our stomach filled today, but then that our children will live in an oppressive and subjugating environment. That you have continued despite the fact that IPOB leadership has said that this weekly monthly sit at home is suspended. I salute your courage. I salute the courage of the average Biafrans, market women, traders, transporters, all manner of walks of life, artisans, just name it. Mama food sellers, women who do not, vegetable sellers in the market, women who earn their living through the petty trade that they do. But they have more commitment. They have shown more faithfulness and loyalty to Onye Ndumazi Nnamdi. They have shown consistency and discipline that each week they will willingly, without any compulsion, they will lock down their business places. The school children, their parents will tell them to stay at home because what we are fighting is for you, our children. And they will stay at home. That is commendable. And I want to tell you this evening that the leadership of IPOB commend that singular act of faithfulness and loyalty. I want to tell you this evening that the Directorate of State of the Indigenous People of Biafra want to commend your act of consistency. And there is nothing that anybody can say when you have seen that the people themselves have said, okay, yes, you are our leaders, you give us instruction, we respect that, but we have taken it upon ourselves to make more sacrifices that our leader, Onye Mazi Kano, must be released. IPOB cannot anymore, in any manner, tell you not to do that which you have chosen to do. It is only commendations that we can only give to you. And I wish to repeat, and because this is very important, that the 1st of October, this very year, shall not, abroad, not even a goat must be seen outside. Not a cockroach, not a fowl must be seen outside. This is the time that the world must see, because while we are sitting at home on the 1st of October is to tell the whole world that we have in spirit and in the physical realm rejected the zoo. We have rejected Nigeria. Our ancestors, the land of Biafra, has rejected Nigeria. And once we have rejected them, we will go further and remove every vestige of the oppressive presence in our land. I wanted to repeat this so that it sinks in and that our people understand that this leadership, we are marching forward ahead. We cannot be distracted. We cannot be, the enemy cannot set our agenda for us. The enemy cannot set our agenda for us, because that is what they are trying to do. They want us to begin to focus on the distraction that they will be, bringing out here and there. But we are focused and we are marching ahead in accordance with the plan that we have to make sure we reach our objective, to make sure we achieve our objective, to make sure that Onye Mazi Kano, your Hamadike, the supreme leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, is with us sooner than later. I want to thank all of you for listening this very evening. I want to commend those who are doing marvelously well in your respective core duties and responsibilities. You must continue in that path, because victory is assured, because we will not relent in any manner. While you're doing all that you're doing, please be at alert. Be at alert and do not let the trappings of money deceive you. Because if you sell your birthright, the blessings that comes with your birthright will be given to another person. May Elohim guide and preserve each and every one of you. May Chukwu Abiyama, upon whom all glory and honor belongs, may he continue to guide you properly. May he continue to imbue you with his spirit, the spirit of discipline, the spirit of loyalty, the spirit of faithfulness, of consistency, and of course, of commitment to our core principles and objectives. I ask that heaven shall guide and be with our ESN warriors. Oyendu has raised the flag. And I want to tell you that the flag will not come down until Biafra is restored. I want to repeat it here now. The flag has been raised, whether the enemy likes it or not. The flag has been raised. Whether the politicians in the zoo like it or not, the flag has been raised. And it will not come down until we achieve our faith and create an enabling environment for our children to develop their talents and for our children to, of course, grow in dignity and also in honor as other children are doing in civilized nations. Thank you once again. I will be bringing a memo on the changes that we have in Canada and on the changes that we have in IPOB USA Central Region. And let me warn, we are not laughing at you. If you are a principal officer, search your heart, search your mind, search your soul. If you cannot continue to obey the structure or follow the structure that has been put in place by you, the honorable thing for you to do is to put in your resignation, and we will willingly and happily welcome. If you cannot follow instructions, please put in your resignation. Otherwise, you will be removed on air, like I have just done this very evening. Any coordinator, every coordinator, from the continental rep down to the unit coordinators, this message is for all of us. And I pray that Chukwu shall, of course, give you the spirit that will allow you not to fall by the wayside. I pray that Elohim will give you the spirit that will allow you not to fall victim. I pray that Elohim will give you the strength to say no when they come knocking at your door, compromise you, or to deceive you. Biafra, we say, is not just a country that was, according to the late Professor Chino Alumogo. Biafra, for us, is not just Biafra is our heritage. Biafra is our religion. And only to Chukwu Abiyama, the creator of heaven and earth, to him alone belongs all worship, and it is only to him that the children of light, that the Biafran people, that the great IPOB family, it is only to Chukwu that we bow down. And it is only him that we fear. Not man, not woman, not anyone that is born of woman or not anything that is created. It is to Chukwokike that we bow down, and it is only to him that we have faith. And this very moment, we are marching fearlessly to our destination. Therefore, may Elohim be with you all this night. May Elohim be with you all this morning. May Elohim be with you all this afternoon, depending on your time. And I want to say to you, from me, from here, it is good night. And thank you so much for listening.
In the West. So they had people who were highly trained, and they're not going to be pushed around by what you know. Yeah. So people like by the backward people from the north, Africa. I know you won't be disputing that one. Right. So, Brother Justice, if you could introduce yourself, and then you introduce the organization of what you represent there.
Good morning, everybody. It's a great honor to be in this studio.
thank our brother Kwame Cecil for this invitation. My name is Justice Ukachi-Lois. I'm the UK United Kingdom National Coordinator for the indigenous people of Biafra. Now, as Kwame said, Biafra is in Africa. Without getting too controversial, if you look in the ancient maps, even as far back in 1600s, you see the word or the area designated Biafra. So there's no argument about where Biafra is. Now, most of us understand it's also in Nigeria currently. And that's probably
in fact, that big sea area of Nigeria is actually called the Gulf of Biafra, isn't it? Long before Nigeria became a state.
Absolutely, absolutely. So there's a bite of Biafra, long before Nigeria became known as a country. And that's, so if it existed in the 1600s and Nigeria got its independence in 1960, so Biafra obviously existed before, but and the issue now is whether it's inside Nigeria or is Nigeria inside Biafra. I will need to go into that. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity and privilege to share what little knowledge I have on this huge nebulous topic. But if the process or the actual outcome is to help everybody understand the situation on the ground, and also to help us as Africans to stop further bloodshed in that part of the world, we'll all be grateful. Thank you.
Okay, so give a brief history of the organization.
Yes, IPOB, Indigenous People of Biafra, is an organization which is like a movement in the sense that it's in over 88 countries in the world. And this occasion because of the fact that most people who were indigenous to Biafra, which is part of the Nigeria, let's say for geographic location, have found themselves scattered all over the world. So you have people within the area of their indigene, which is Biafra within Nigeria and also the rest of the African continent. And there's a saying that where you don't find an Biafran, then that place is not safe. So we are really everywhere. So it's an organization which is like an umbrella group which try to unite them all to fight a common cause, which by implication, if we stabilize this part of Africa, the whole thing will spread to the rest of Africa. So we are in several countries. I happen to be one of the coordinators in the United Kingdom. So if you go to Germany, you find IPOB. If you go to France, you find IPOB, Ireland, and so on and so forth. But of course, the majority of people live in Biafra land itself. And this is what we're going to explore a bit further. Thank you.
And the common cause is, what's the aim of the organization?
Right. The aim is to have a peaceful restoration of a country we call Biafra, which, as I said earlier, existed way in the ancient days. And if we can restore it, then in a peaceful manner, because we've been through war, which I suppose we can talk about later, there's no need killing each other again to establish what you already have. So this particular organization is going for a peaceful agitation for the restoration of their sovereignty, which is Biafra.
And that means succeeding from Nigeria.
People call it seceding. Yeah, people call it seceding. When you use the word secede, it means you're going to, literally price yourself away. But in 1967, when the first word was used to say Biafra, part of Nigeria, was seceding, it was with the understanding that you're a part of a country and you're forcing to go away from it. But if you have been pushed out from one part of the country and you return to your village, you can't be saying you seceded from your from other parts. From the way the world will look at it, as though you're pulling away. But the Biafran experience was that they were in other parts of Nigeria and they were pushed out of that. So nowhere else was safe until they got back to their own fatherland, as it were. And because of the rejection and all the efforts to have peace failed, they declared themselves as a separate part of the country, hoping that in so doing, they'll be left alone and no further bloodshed. Unknown to them, that declaration was a signal for Nigeria to say, well, we have this territorial integrity, you can't go out. So they killed them to kick them out, they killed them to bring them back in, and the killing is still going on. So the IPOB is trying to stop, bring an end to all this killing.
Okay. Right. If you could give us a brief history, just may I assist briefly?
Yes.
You speak of the indigenous people of Biafra.
Yes.
Everybody knows that, in a way, it's Igbo land. So who else is there?
Okay. When we look at the whole map of, if you like, Nigeria, there's a section called Igbo land. The issues like, what's the best way to, you don't really know where the boundary is, because if you imagine Nigeria as an artificial creation, if you look at African map, it's in boxes, isn't it? So there's an artificial creation. So there's a portion of that artificial creation, which you call the Igbos live here. But they have neighbors like other tribes, like the Efik, like the Ibibio, the Ogojas, and so on. And you keep listing them. It's like if you move from one part of your village and go further down, they speak a slightly different dialect. But the way they see the worldview is similar. They have the same cultural identity and understanding. So it's difficult to price them apart. And the mistake people make, or the British make, is say, but you're Igbo and you want to colonize the next tribe. It's not like that. So there's a definite area through marriage, cultural acclimatization. They're actually one. They see themselves as one. So when Biafra was declared, it was an eastern part of Nigeria, which included not just the Igbos, although the Igbos are the majority. There are other tribes which obviously constituted the then Biafra declaration.
There's some people call it Igoni.
Now, there's a portion of this Biafra, it's also called Ogoni. That's a tribe, which is Ogoni tribe. Yeah.
So if they wanted autonomy from Biafra, what would be your position on that?
Interesting, because Biafrans, they have in their head is autonomy. You can't force them to do what they don't want. So every single tribe that makes
let's call them people, because
the tribe is very nebulous.
They're not just nebulous, it's a kind of negative European notion.
Indeed. So I'm glad you mentioned that. So every group of people that constitute that geographic space, if they want to have their own autonomy, that's welcome. There's no the thing is, autonomy is because we are being suppressed majority of the times due to people being marginalized or discriminated against, and they want their own autonomy. But all these communities actually are fractionated. Even in the Igbo land, they have different communities which are fractionated. And that is what makes it difficult to appreciate the Igbo. They have this concept that the Igbo don't have a king, or Igbo, something like that, which means they don't have one person central and say, I want you to do this. So because each community has its autonomy, so it's inbuilt in their system. And as a result of that inbuilt autonomy, if there's an issue, a village will nominate someone to go and talk on their behalf. And after that discussion, that ends there. You don't carry on representing them. So when the British arrived, they found it very difficult to deal with because they want to talk to who's in charge. There's no one who is in charge. And that's a different concept for everywhere else they've been to. But other parts of Nigeria, they do have something like a ruler, an emir, and they can talk to them who then filter the information down. In the Biafran setting, you don't have this overall ruler. So every village is autonomous. So the Goni people would be autonomous. The Efik are autonomous, and so on. And the combination of all this makes what we call United States of Biafra.
Okay. So that's what the juridical entity, the new state.
That's right.
Very old, but now new in the international scene.
Indeed.
Would be. It'd be a United States of Biafra, United Peoples of Biafra.
Absolutely.
All right. We know that there was a a civil war in the 60s,
Yes.
and I was around, so I know just how brutal and awful it was. I don't know if before your time.
I was in it.
All right.
As a child, I survived it.
Right, so you know better than me. All right. So one of the things that I think people have to understand is how that came about, how that actual war between, as it were, the northern part of Nigeria and the western part of Nigeria fighting together to keep the eastern part of Nigeria in a state then called Nigeria, actually still called Nigeria. So how did that come about?
Okay, before you go to that, what I wanted to give a brief history of the area today known as Nigeria.
Yes.
Like who was the people in there before and what contribution did they make towards human development?
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a much nebulous. Fine. So the geographical space, I'm glad you used the term, geographical space called Nigeria, came about by, slowly accumulating territories by the British government. What happened was that when the scramble for Africa, basically we all know about slave trade.
Yeah.
When that ended, when they got enough, I'm coming to it. Because the slavery occurred, then they stopped taking human capital out of Africa. Now they come back into the they had to now, because they used to collect human slaves at the coast. They couldn't go inside because they don't know quite what's going on. So people used to be brought to them at the coast. So when slavery ended, they now have to find a way of getting more resources. So this is the beginning of colonization. Now, all those countries were not, there's no hard fixed boundary, which you could say, this country, I want to now come and colonize you. So they did it by stealth, gradually trading. So the French were coming, the British were coming, so they were actually fighting among each other. And the Europeans, being Europeans, they they went to Germany and sat on a table and carved up Africa like a turkey. Yeah. So the reason why Nigeria
or a fish.
Oh, fish. So they had a dinner. They had a dinner party. So they said, all right, you want the leg bit? I'm sticking to my chicken. You want the leg bit? Okay, we'll give you the leg bit. I'll take the arm. I'll take the chest or whatever. You understand? So to stop the Europeans fighting among each other. So when it came to Nigeria, the French were coming from the north and from the west. And then the British sneaked in from the coast and went up to confront the West and to confront the French. So there was, therefore, a deliberate ploy by the British. They started trading at the coast and they gradually moved up to the north. So unknown to them, there was in the north what we call an established empire, which is Islamic. And they were coming down to the south coast. They were coming down to move Islam all the way down to the southern coast. And if you like, in West Africa, is that eastern part, which became Biafra, that hasn't been Islamized. So there was an intention to bring Islam down south coast. So the British met it.
And much of the West wasn't Islamized either, the Yoruba people.
Indeed, they were half and half. So they met this, the British met this intended conquest, if you like, head on to stop them coming down and taking more slaves. There was a fight to stop that. So the British, under a soldier, colonial soldier called Lugard, sent his military to try and conquer the all-conquering Islamic forces. They were very, very upset with that because they thought if the British wasn't there, they would have conquered the whole country. So we have to bear that in mind. But the British conquered the north because the north was conquered by the Fulani, a tribe called Fulani. I'm going to quickly introduce them. A people called Fulani who took on the indigenous people called the HAUSAs in the northern part of Nigeria. And they subdued them and also sent what they call the emirs. Each town the area they conquered, they had a Fulani person ruling it.
A kind of a big chief.
Indeed. So they call it emirs. Now, those emirs confronted the British, and British conquered them because the people the emirs conquered, the houses, they didn't like to be conquered by the Fulanese. So it was easier for the British to conquer the Fulanese, if you imagine what's going on. So the British conquest of the Fulanese was easier than they would have admitted if the whole of the North was behind and fighting the British. So the British said we had the Maxim, the machine guns. So it was easier for them because you had this. Anyway, so they conquered the northern Nigeria, where the Fulanese were predominant in ruling. And then the Fulani played, so right, okay, you conquered us, we understand. In fact, Lugard himself said, by the same authority you used to subdue the houses, we're using it to subdue you. So, but what they did was to allow them to carry on ruling that part.
Indirect rule in the book.
So that's it's a very, very strange thing. You conquer them and say, but you can carry on ruling as you have been ruling, but we are in charge now.
It suited the British very well.
It suited them because they didn't have the manpower to administer the whole area. They used the indigenous people who are ruling it to maintain that. So that is up in the north. That's was a huge geographical area. But when it came to the south, it was a slightly different scenario.
First happened before that.
It happened before that because in order to get to the north, you have to come from the south. So they bombarded a place like Lagos with a naval gunship, and those ones just caved in because they can't really fight naval gunship. The British had a mighty navy. They conquered the east as well, and they merged east with the west. So they now and called it Southern Nigeria or Protectorate. I don't know who they protected. So they call it Southern Protectorate. And the Southern Protectorate were merged as a result of Lagos, the west, and the east. Remember, the capital was originally in Calabar, which is in the east. And I'm sure my brothers in West Indies know about Calabar.
We have a college in Jamaica by that name.
Calabar. So it's actually indigenous to that part. So therefore, you had the southern part with protectorate, then merged with the northern part which was being conquered, which became the Nigeria. The southern protectorate merged with the Northern Protectorate in 1914. This when all this happened.
Let's get back to that. I think that my brother Kwame was asking something else. Before all of that, the area that we call Nigeria has a culture, and it's very impressive. It's the first place outside of Egypt. It's the first place that excited me because it has Benin and Ife and Igbo Ukwu and all of that wonderful and Nok and all of that. I think when he said, what is his contribution to human culture, that perhaps is what he was asking you to talk about. So it's
phenomenal contribution. Phenomenal contribution. I suppose the Benin culture, for example, had, if you go to the bronze, they are really masters of it. And what the British did, before they merged into Southern Protectorate, the Benin culture had their own military. They resisted the British invasion force.
400 years.
And then British then sent an expedition force to totally wipe them out.
1896 or 97.
Indeed. And as a result of complete destruction of the Benin Kingdom, they grabbed all the artifact and brought it to the British. In fact, I think 2 days ago I read somewhere saying, we want our statues back.
The Nigerians have been asking for that for the longest while. They offer to loan it. They say it's dangerous to hand it back. You don't have the right condition there to protect it. All kind of arguments. They say we didn't really steal it. It was legitimate.
Because we captured it. We found it. So it's the same thing as the Greek marble.
Absolutely.
So the culture, when you look at them, the intricacy of it is phenomenal. I personally saw an exhibition many years ago when I was at university, when they came to London, of the artwork. And we mentioned Benin. We also, when they come to the eastern part, they also had this amazing, delicate exhibition, the pot with the weave, right? They also had that you can really appreciate the advance in their culture. Then in the north, they also had their own Islamic way of doing things. So the Nook culture was also, we're talking centuries ago. But
it's actually more than centuries. The
ancient times,
the foundation culture, the earliest thing that the archaeologists talk about is the Nok culture, and it's now agreed that you can date it back to about 1000 BC.
Absolutely.
So we're not talking about centuries, we're actually talking about millennia, we're talking about 3 millennia of a continuous culture that has connection.
That's right.
In artistic material that uses bronze,
yes.
that uses ivory,
indeed,
that uses wood, which doesn't last very long, yes, and that also uses baked pottery, which
That's
does
right.
last very long if it's not in wet conditions.
Absolutely.
So we actually have,
yes,
because all of this stuff is preserved,
yes,
evidence of
yes,
the quality of that
indeed,
cultural
indeed,
connection and
yes,
reality that does in fact go back 3,000 years.
And, and you also have pyramids built in a
yes,
place like Udi in
yes,
the eastern part. There are pyramids,
yes,
which most people don't know about.
Yeah.
So to talk about what have they contributed, it's not just in that culture. Their music,
yes,
their artwork,
yes,
and of course the history. You only need to listen to some of their languages.
Yeah.
Some of us have certificates put in the drawer, but
Yes,
those people, their wisdom in their idioms will make you understand they were really advanced cultures.
yes. And speaking of the language, one of the fascinating things is that the HAUSA,
yes,
who the Igbos may not particularly like, I don't know, but the HAUSA
yes,
have this wonderfully, I'm sure it's not actually more intricate than anybody else's,
right,
but the Western linguists
yes,
regard it as a phenomenally complicated and impressive language. There's a reservoir of all kinds of cultural stuff.
yes,
And they've suddenly decided that it's not really an African language at all. Because every time something of cultural that they recognize as of cultural significance is found in Africa, it cannot be African. So I think on this program we were saying a few weeks ago, so the Hausa language, because of its riches,
yes,
is not African. The Ife bronzes, which were rediscovered in the early 20th century, the first one in 1910, and then a whole set of them in Ife, in the Olokon Grove, as you probably know, in the 1920s. Once that stuff was discovered, clearly, artistically, it's on a match with ancient Egypt and with ancient Greece. They don't talk about ancient Egypt. They say that the Greeks must have come across the Mediterranean, come across the Sahara, come another 1,000 miles down across the grassland and the forest, and taught these Africans how to do this stuff. Even though, in point of fact, Greece's flowering is 500 or 600 BC, and we now know that the Nok stuff is at least 500 years older, and probably even older than that. So it makes no sense at all. And they do the same thing with Great Zimbabwe. Great Zimbabwe is this phenomenal monument, probably 13th century, and they get there, they see it, and it cannot be African. So I have a little book. The title of it is The Arab Builders of Great Zimbabwe, and they have these people in Arab dress who they're saying went all the way down the Indian Ocean, and then how far up into Africa is Great Zimbabwe? It's at least 1,500 miles, probably 2,000 miles. Africa is vast, and they say that these people left from wherever in the Arab world they came from. Leave aside the fact that the Arabs are actually mostly black people, but leave that aside and come down, get up in the middle of Africa and build these things. And the problem with that one, there's so many problems with it, is that although Great Zimbabwe is the biggest of these stone cities, in fact, the Mashonaland, which is effectively where they are, that includes part of Zimbabwe and part of Mozambique, is full of stone cities, as I think I was saying on this program a few weeks ago. So that's what we find. They cut off the north of Africa and say that's not Africa. And then even when in the now Africa south of the Sahara, sub-Saharan Africa, put is sub, it must be inferior. And then you find stuff there. How do you explain that these people who are supposed to be primitive, non-creative, have done stuff? So the explanation is that they really didn't do it. The Portuguese helped the Benin to make their bronzes, or the Greeks helped their predecessors to the people of Ife to make their bronzes, or They don't bother to know that those people were part of a tradition that stretched back before Greece. Leave aside the Egyptian connection or the Ethiopian connection. Yeah,
absolutely, because the Herodotus, who's known as a Greek historian,
he was indeed.
If he's the father of history, he wrote about Africa.
Yes.
So you can be a father of history writing about history that's already been made.
Yes.
So everything African, like the building the pyramids, all the advanced technology, they always try to find it impossible to attribute it or to ascribe it to black people.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the bottom line.
Absolutely.
So the civilization is for them to see and acknowledge they actually belong to black people.
Yes.
And they try everything to denigrate. I think it was Napoleon who chopped up the nose of the Sphinx.
Yes.
Because he couldn't believe.
Then he shot it off.
So, that for him, it can't possibly be black nose. You know, it can't. So to answer your question, civilization in Africa, wherever you look, in fact, there were more pyramids, weren't they, in Sudan?
Yes, absolutely.
Than
in Egypt. Absolutely.
So people don't say that.
Yeah.
So the black people, they were, if from point of view of contribution to civilization, they're highly advanced. And the Renaissance they talk about
we invented human culture first, and then human civilization. Everything that they call civilization. Literature, music, the arts, medicine, scientific technology, and so on. All of that starts in Africa.
So what they did was to conquer Egypt and burn all the books that will support. But the hieroglyphics, all the writing is still there for them to see.
Let's just look briefly at that burning process before. Right. So, and it's legitimate, because what we're really talking about is African contribution to world civilization, and we're focusing on Nigeria, but it connects the whole of the continent. So that burning process, it doesn't start with Napoleon. When the Greeks arrive and conquer Egypt, they collect up Egyptian books that are scattered. Scattered is the wrong word, that are located in the temples throughout Egypt. So they scatter them up and they put them in a library in Alexandria. And people talk about this as a Greek library. Nothing Greek about it. Greeks never had any books to put in no library. They've been writing for about 400 years by then, and most of the stuff that they've written was stolen, imitated, whatever from ancient Egypt. So all of this stuff gets collected up in effectively two different entities in Alexandria and so on. And then the Romans arrive and the burning process starts. There's either an accidental or a deliberate fire at the time of Mark Antony in that war between him and another Caesar. The stuff the stuff that takes place around
it could be Pompeii, Alexandria.
Around what the queen did name?
Queen Cleopatra.
Queen Cleopatra, exactly so. And so the burning begins then.
Yes.
And then the Arabs arrive and they do some burning. And before the Arabs, the Christians who don't like this heritage of pagan, because Jesus is not celebrated in it, they burn some of that stuff. And so the burning, the destruction and stealing thing has been going on for at least 1,000 and 1,100 and something years. Horrible stuff.
So there's a lot you can say the contribution. So if it doesn't matter where you go in Africa, when you look hard enough, you find advanced civilization. But the West will say, oh, it must have come from alien culture. It must have come from outside. And that's really where we are.
And the on the burning stuff, because in addition to Egypt, Ethiopia, and that Northeast Africa being a real residue of African civilization. You also have stuff that develops in the north of Nigeria, in places like Senegal, just to the north of Senegal, Mali, and Timbuktu, all of that. They are full of manuscripts. Most of the manuscripts are in Arabic, but not at all exclusively in Arabic. And most of it is still there, or if not most, a whole heap, gigantic amounts of manuscripts that contain all kinds of knowledge is still there. And those people who don't like indigenous African language, even if it's in African knowledge, even if it's in their language, because they're Arabic. So right now, Islamists are busy in Mali, in Timbuktu. The French are trying to stop them. God knows why the French are trying to stop them. And the UN. I see why the UN is trying to. But that burning process happening, because, just as in Afghanistan, there's some Islamic barbarians, and they destroy stuff that non-Islamic because they see it as, well, just not Islamic, and therefore not in praise of Allah. And it doesn't matter how old it is, it doesn't matter whether it predates Allah and Islam or not. They set about to destroy it. And a lot of that is happening in the Sahel, just to the south of the Sahara right now. So these processes are alive and still damaging our culture, historical
and our headache now is those who have been privileged to read a little bit is to make sure our people understand all this.
Absolutely,
so
yes.
The history belongs to history books, but we're going to bring it alive. It's the knowledge we impart to the next generation is important to empower them to realize, hang on, what's this about Africans being inferior? That's not right. And that's really the message I want to say. So I don't know if that's
and just one last point about that before we return to modern Nigeria.
Okay.
This burning and destruction and denial, this cutting off of the north of Africa, of Egypt, and saying that it wasn't African, wasn't black. That serves a real function, right? Because when the Europeans arrive in India or in China, which they did, or in Japan, or even in Mexico, they see and acknowledge at once that they are in the presence of old, deep culture. You don't want to do that in Africa, but there is evidence of that also in Africa. So what they do is deny the African nature of what they discover there. So when you talk to an Indian or a Chinaman, he knows that I belong to a culture that has all this ancient books and artifacts and so on. When you talk to an African, because of what the Europeans have done to us, we don't know how rich our culture is. We don't know that we're at the head of Africa, of world civilization. We don't know what our ancestors have done. And we believe what they throw at us, that we're nothing and have never done anything, which is history's largest ever lie.
That's
right? Just as the enslavement of our people is history's largest monstrosity. The Jews are trying to tell us that the Holocaust is the worst thing that happened in history. Not the thing of us. What happened to us is by far eons more than what happened at the Holocaust. This is not to approve the Holocaust in any way or to deny it, but it's more beer in comparison to what happened to us. And yet we, because of the power of their media, because of our own ignorance, because much of this stuff we've been able to know for something like the last 2 centuries. There have been individual black people who are writing this stuff, and it's there in the book, but we don't bother to learn it because we don't get told that it's there. We don't know that's important, and we listen. Our young people listen to all kinds of stuff. I listened to Michael Jackson. You just played with Michael Jackson, and I didn't understand a word of it. To be absolutely to be absolutely honest, and that's what our young people are listening to, right? And sometimes there's stuff there, but mostly there's next to nothing there. And the places that they could go for real knowledge of us, of our history, of our contribution to humanity, of indeed of our making of humanity, the people of them don't know because they don't have any way of accessing it.
Yeah, so that's partly why, if you have a stable country, and Biafra would be one of those, it will respect these cultures. It will explain to our people, particularly in the diaspora, what has happened. There'll be accuracy without necessarily banting about, being melodramatic about what's happened to us. There will be events, there'll be lecture, there'll be, if you like, an explanation of who we are. And Biafra, when it was there for 2.5 years, demonstrated
Centuries.
2.5 years.
Oh, the state.
67 to 70, during its war, it demonstrated its ability to innovate when it was totally impossible to innovate. Some Europeans are around and say, this is the first place we've been to in Africa where the blacks are doing everything. So they were shocked at the amount of what they were able to do. So civilization had been been there, but we need to mine it and have stable countries in Africa which will actually show it. So people from abroad will come in and see for themselves. Until we have stable countries, it's going to be difficult to do that.
So return now then to what you were telling us about, which is the making of Nigeria, say in the 19th and 20th century.
So it was therefore a colonial construct in the sense that you had these indigenous cultures embedded prior to the arrival of the Europeans who were scrambling for mineral resources and had to acquire wealth to run their industries. So Nigeria, therefore, was put together, what we call an agglomeration of divergent cultures.
Yes.
In fact, the person who put them together, Lord Luga, said water and oil can't mix.
Yeah.
They know that the type of cultures that were in their different, if you like, peoples, although they intermarried, they looked after, they were never at war. They were not industrialized killing of one tribe or the other. They intermarried, they traded. So all these things, but they had a different, distinct identity.
Yes.
Now,
so what did Lugard mean when he talked about water and oil not mixing?
Because he realized from the north, the Muslim way of doing things is different from remember I said to you, they had somebody who could rule and tell them what to do.
Yes.
Whereas in the south, in the east, they have some stubborn people like myself who, if you want to tell them what to do, you have to call a meeting.
Yes, but another part of
when you call a meeting, then people sat down and discussed what you're bringing to them to do, whether it's to their advantage or not.
Yes.
So as a result, there were two different people.
Yeah.
The British could tell the North what to do, and they do it straight away. Yeah. They can try and impose it in the East, and it wouldn't work.
Right. I have a question that arises from something that you said earlier, which I know independently, which is that you also said that the Biafran War in effect started because there had been a process by which Biafrans who were everywhere in what was then Nigeria were killed and pushed back into Nigeria.
Pushed out of Nigeria.
No.
Pushed out of Nigeria, back to that part, and then killed to bring back.
Yeah, okay. So I think we're agreeing. I might be saying it differently, but in effect, what I heard you saying, and I know this to be true, that people from eastern Nigeria were living in the north, they were living in the west. That there came a moment when the place in the north of Nigeria called the Sabangari, it was a district in one of the big cities, where there's an attack on them and very many thousands were actually killed in that process. So what I'd like you to address briefly is how it came to be the case that those people from the east were living in those numbers in the north.
Absolutely. It's a very, very pertinent question. Now, as I said, the British went there and united water and oil together. So you say to the northern people, we're going to rule you by indirect rule. But indirect rule means you have their own way of running their countries and affairs in place. They say, oh, you're a Muslim, yes, but can we bring Christianity to you? Say, no, you can't. We have a Muslim. How about schools? No, Islamic schools. How about catching up with the modern world? No. We do it at our own pace. Down south, what happened? I'm answering your question. Why did you have such a problem number?
I'm in agreement with you. I think I understand where you're going.
So down south, Christianity arrived. They say, God sent us. They say, we know God. What's the problem? He sent you. We might actually believe you. God may have sent you. And what is it you can offer us? Oh, okay, schools. So one village will build a school, and the next one say, this thing is good. We better build ours. So there's a competition. To cut a long story short, down south part of Nigeria.
Don't cut that story short. It's very important.
Okay. Yeah. So the reason I'm going that way is that there was an assimilation of the Western ways of doing things. Because after fighting the British and the British conquered them, they said, what have you got to offer us? Okay. What about churches, schools, and so on? So communities started developing. And what I'm going to say, cut a long story short, because of time, you end up having something like 800.
So we can come back next week if
you want to explain this properly. You have something like 841 secondary schools, let's say, down in the south.
Yes.
This is pre-independence.
Yes, I know.
Compared to nearly about 42 in the north.
Yes.
But the north is vast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The size of Western Europe. Yeah. So if you have in the down south, I'm talking both in the Yoruba West and also in the East, a vast amount of secondary schools, but in those days quite rare. They were able, therefore, to produce those who can write, who can therefore do administration for the British government, which were needed in the north. So therefore, they went up north to run the trade, the post offices, and all the things. Now, you mentioned the word Sabongari before. For the benefit of the listeners, Sabongari is a place where if you arrive in the north, because you're not a Muslim, they will not allow you to live inside their walled city. You lived outside the walled city because visitors' quarters called Sabongari. Now, Sabongari therefore occupied by those who came from the southern part. And in the Sabongari, they were called privileged pariahs because they were actually doing the work and getting money from the Europe, in other words, they were earning salaries,
They were
sending their
servants of colonialism in
indeed.
effect.
So they're benefiting, they're having cars, having shops. Meanwhile, the indigenous people were say, hang on, they've come to our land and they're taking over our jobs. You can imagine where this is going. So they began to restrict them. You're not allowed to own, lands. If you do, we rescind it. And there's so much so that they said, if we don't take any plan to stem this flow, we're going to be swamped. So their premier said,
must be related to Margaret Thatcher.
The jobs, well, he was knighted. So he said the jobs has to be a northerner first. So you have people from the south who go to the north to try and run the whole country in the north. And if the northerners who were administering the northern part of Nigeria as a separate entity on behalf of the British via what they call the native administration, they can only appoint you if you're a northerner. So they call it northerner first. So if you have any of theirs who has qualified, he gets the job. If you're then a foreigner, someone, an expat, that's the exact word, an expat, someone from outside Nigeria will get the job number 2, and any other part of Nigeria, will get 3 before an Igbo person from the east gets the job. Because you think the Igbos, all you have to do is put them in a job, and before you know it, they're taken over. So there was this enmity about those who went off from the southern part to the northern part to help to develop what was then the Nigerian Federation.
So I want to ask another question, because I know that in the making of the Civil War, that's important. The officer class in the Nigerian army was also substantially from the south, and particularly Igbo. As the place became independent.
I'm building the civilians, and then we bring the army.
All right. Okay.
So the civilians were in, if you like, most of the people who went up north to set up their own motor, spare parts business. They were appeared to be flourishing, and as a result, they attracted more people from their own parts of the country. So much so there was an approach when all the killing started, the tune of between 1.8 to 2 million people outside the eastern part of Nigeria that had to run back to their own part. So there's a huge number, but it's really dwarfs into insignificance when compared to the population in the north. So, but what was then happening was Nigeria, because of the people in the south who were pushing for independence, the northerners said, no, we're not ready for independence. So there was a mismatch whereby a whole country like Nigeria that could have become independent earlier were being dragged back because people in the north, because of their own way of seeing things or doing things, they weren't training enough people from the northern part who would then administer that part. So they felt they'd be disadvantaged if they had independence earlier. So much so that Nnamdi Azikiwe mentioned.
Independence means southern rule, just as in the Caribbean,
Absolutely.
Mr. Bustamante said independence means brown man rule.
There you go. So they didn't want to replace the British colonialism with southern colonialism. Okay, so that was an issue for them in the big time. So the Nigerians were trying to get the British to leave so they can begin this process of African decolonization. Yeah. So, and there were people like Nnamdi Azikiwe who had Pan-African view.
Yes.
Yeah. The Pan-African view. So
who
that
was he?
Nnamdi Azikiwe is from the Eastern Part, is an Igbo person. Now, but it is more HAUSA. He was actually born in the North.
Okay.
Yeah, in 1904.
Yes.
So he was born there, a place called Zenguri.
Yes.
So because his father was a clerk and so on, so he was born up there. And he realized that very, very early that in order for Africans to be emancipated, you have to be well educated to confront
in the
British.
Western way.
In the Western way, to confront the British. So he, along with his friends, stowed away the ship. They were going to America. They didn't care. So one of his friends became seasick, and they were told that you better throw them overboard. So that otherwise, they decided no, they're going to disembark in Accra in Ghana. When they were chopped off the boat. So, and then he started to work as a laborer, and the message got home that to his father and his parents that he ran away. He's now living in Ghana. So then he was brought back, and his father said, "Here's my pension money. Let's do this properly. Go to America." So he went to America. He worked as a boxer at the coal mine, trained himself, Lincoln University, got a master's degree in the 30s. Now, this is unusual. And at one stage in his quest to help Africa free, he actually was lying before a train line to kill himself. He was fed up with the whole thing. But someone rescued him. He managed to get his head together and went back to Africa. Now, at that time, in the 30s, he has a master's degree. It was very, very strange. So he started by going to media and popularizing the need to free the African mind. So the idea is to restore the dignity of black man. So he was in the forefront.
Was he influenced by Garvey in any way?
Yes, he had Garvey's interest that had to hold Africa unite together. So the reason why he's significant in this discussion is because he was the one leading, along with others, to try and free Nigeria from British colonialism.
By the way, he has an autobiography just called Z.I.K.
Yes, called Zik.
That people should find and read.
Excellent. Z.I.K. is an abbreviation of Nnamdi Azikiwe. He changed his name from Benjamin to Nnamdi because he wanted to represent his country in an Olympics by himself. He was a boxer, he's a sprinter, he's a runner, he's a footballer, he's everything. He's a proper athlete. And they said, no, you can't represent your country. You haven't got a country. So he was so angry. So he decided he's no longer going to be called Benjamin. From now on, his name is Nnamdi. Which is, by the way, the name of the current leader of IPOB, called Nnamdi. So if you like, this is the first Nnamdi. We gave the
number one.
Nnamdi one. So Nnamdi Azikiwe was therefore, along with other members in Nigeria called Awolowo on the west, they were trying to unite.
Who also has an autobiography.
We're coming back. We come back. So they were trying to set the Nigerian people free from colonialism. The problem was the methodology. Because water and oil not make cement, some parts of the country weren't ready. The British told the Azikiwe, because he was one of the prime agitators, there are three parts then to Nigeria then, the northern, the eastern, and the western at that time. We're talking the 50s. The British told them, if two of you out of three want independence, we will give it to you. So Nigeria could have been independent before Ghana. Nnamdi Azikiwe, having been to America, thinking Pan-African, it says, and we're United States of Africa. So if two of us, the East is ready, the West is ready, I'm talking Eastern and Western part of Nigeria then, they call them region in those days.
Yes, they do.
These guys are ready, but the North is not ready. We will wait for them. And the North said, we'll only come and join you guys if you give us 50% of the vote. That's going to be. So they were rigging from the beginning, setting the pace to say, we could only join this independent movement if you give us 50% of the vote. So, and then the remaining 50, of course, going to be shared between East and West. So you can imagine a federation where preponderantly one side has more majority. So
did they have the population base, or was that a lie?
Now, the population is interesting. If you look at the whole of West Africa, there's only one part in that West African where more people seem to live in the north in Nigeria than in the west. And so than in the southern part where it's more populated. And also if you look at population density, it's more on the eastern part, but now using satellite imagery. Outside the Nile Valley, there are no more greater population density than the eastern part of Nigeria. So they believe that the population census was rigged to give the impression there are more people living in the north than in the south, where there are a huge number of people. So the population...
There's all kinds of problems with that census, isn't it? Because the north, even though it wanted to claim population preponderance, big numeric numbers, they didn't want the women counted. Because they're in... You're not supposed to
You can't go inside somebody's house and count the women. It's not done.
So we don't know how they arrived at these numbers at all, because there's all kinds of problems with it. I remember that.
So they knew the population census was rigged. In fact, when Nigeria became independent, I believe 1962-63, there's another recount. And there was all sorts of figures turned out, so much so that made the Igbos vulnerable, because the person ruling the Igbo part of the eastern part of Nigeria said they didn't believe the census result from the north. His name is Dr. Opara. So he became an enemy of the north, because the north said, we have more population, what's your problem? So they were already fighting, because the reason why they're fighting about population is that the greater your number, the more you share the cake. It's a federal thing. So going back to why the war came, so you therefore have a huge number gone up to the north to help develop Nigeria, but they began to have resentment because their presence in the north, first of all, they're not Muslim. Secondly, they appear to be more, if you like,
enterprising,
and from the other people, they appear to be more aggressive because they're taking over our jobs, which they are not qualified to do in the first place. But rather than allow them as Nigerians, they wanted other people outside Nigeria to have the job rather than them. So there was, if you look at the answers of the parliamentary debate in the northern part of Nigeria, it's all about how to get rid of the Igbos. This was in the 40s and the 50s. So that was really the genesis of the war we're coming to, because there was an inbuilt discussion about how do we deal with the Igbos. Well, don't give them stores, don't give them land, don't give them, make sure that they're not in position of authority. The position of authority in the north was ruled by the northern native authority. So you can't even, so they were able to start plotting and planning how to contain the Igbos who are living in Sabongaris. Now, you mentioned the military. So the goings on, so Nigeria managed, to get its independence in 1960. I'm not sure if I'm going too quickly.
No, it's all right.
So Nigeria managed to get its independence in 1960 after the delay and the dragging of the fleet from the north. So the Nnamdi Azikiwe and the people who are trying to get Nigeria freed from colonial Britain through boycotting, through basically they used superior argument. There wasn't any fighting or killing like in the Kenya scenario. The Nnamdi Azikiwe, with all his knowledge and so on, was able to put together ideas that Nigerians are ready to rule themselves. They have the capacity. They had, in fact, they got everything going for them. They had intellect. They had enough people who were intelligent enough to come to UK and argue their own independence. They were just being held back by a group because they wanted to manipulate them. So anyway, to cut that long story short, it just so happens that when independence was coming, the Britain was in the meanwhile building up the north, making sure when you hand over this independence, you're giving it to the people who can do business with you. So that mentality is that rather than give it to the people who are able to run the ship, that was Nigeria, we give it to some people who are our friends, who will listen to whatever we say. So the problem with the black man is that you need to be able
but in the beginning you said it was the South Yeah.
Yes.
That was the freq of the Britons because they accepted schools and religion. Yeah, but now you're saying it's
please repeat that. Repeat that.
I said, earlier you're saying that it was the South that was a friend of the British because they accepted school and religion.
Not friends.
Not friends.
Not friends.
They grabbed what the West had to offer because it's to their own advantage. So they were the ones who building schools in their own parts, generating enough people who can read and everything to run post office and schools, and therefore they weren't really British friends. This word Boko Haram, I'll touch on it now because it's relevant. I'll explain why.
I hope you won't touch on that.
I wouldn't touch on it. This book.
No.
I will explain. Please, let me explain why. This thing, Boko Haram, which means book, Western education is forbidden, is coined by when at the earlier stage these people began to show promise. When they read and understand the way the Western world is put together, they became a danger to the West because that's become education for them is dangerous. You understand? So educating the people from the east and the west part of Nigeria became some sort of a challenge to the British authorities. So now that they liked them, so the British began to suspect them as if we give this power to them to run the country, this country would take off.
Militant anti-colonialism was based on the leadership from the South. That's the point he's making. Whereas in the North, the entity that they had set up there was run by very generally speaking backward Muslim politicians who were not anti-Western, who were in bed with the West. It's like they set up a neo-colony in the north of Nigeria to help them run the whole of Nigeria. And so in that sense, the leadership in the North were their friends. I think that's what the brothers said.
That's right. They played golf with them. They played polo with them and so on. They're really friends of them.
They had horse culture and polo fitted in and all of that. They're very comfortable up there in a way that they weren't in the South.
And they don't want to advance the people.
Yeah, that's right.
So the Eastern and the Western people appear to be more aggressive because in the West they had the first television, enterprise in the whole of Africa. They have free education. With all this therefore became a danger to the colonial master because you can't have these Africans being educated. So what I'm saying at independence, the Nigerian setting at independence, there were more promise, because of the educated quality in Nigerian compared to other countries outside Nigeria. But what backfired was they were literally held back by the people who rather have the British ruling them than their fellow black people from the southern part being in charge of what was left behind by the British.
Setting up.
So when this dragging of feet was happening, the people who were given the power, therefore, by the British, this is very important, because you're handing independence. They knew independence would come to Africa anyway. Ghana has already become independent. Nigeria is the biggest, most populous part of Africa. Now needs its own independence. And they have a groundswell of knowledge, ability. You can't hold them down forever. So the Brits being the Brits now is inevitable. Why don't we give this power to the people who we can still talk to, who we can still manipulate, who can still, in a way, becomes a flag independence. We give you independence, but we're still running everything remotely from London. That's really the danger. So the people who then saw through all this, because when the paper independence was handed over to the North, they wanted to run things in a way that wasn't progressive enough. So the young military hotheads, this is where they come in and say, why is Nigeria so corrupt? The politicians, we're giving you the opportunity to become independent, but rather than advancing your people, you're running the country to the ground. You have elections, you rig it. People, there's a phrase that says, men became pregnant overnight. You know those agbada we wear in Nigeria, those big gown, they put stuff all your ballot box paper in there and you go and drop it. So paper were being announced. This is the first post-independent election. The first one, they say it was rigged, but we move on. They now become independent. Then the first post-independent election, they began to rig elections. This caused a lot of hassle in the western part of Nigeria, which led to what we call wild west. People were having acid poured on them. They are being killed because they belong to one political organization and not the other. So Awolowo himself was imprisoned. So there's chaos going on within.
And there was a new group called the Action Group.
Yes, they weren't new. The Action Group was based in the West. They wanted things to move fast.